Remember Disney LOL? Remember Disney Lamau? Remember Disney RAR? Remember Disney XD? Fun fact, apparently the XD stands for nothing. Well then, Disney XD was launched as a sister channel to the way more popular Disney Channel in 2009, replacing what was once Toon Disney. I can only assume in an attempt to try and cater to kids interested in more action-oriented content. You know, the Disney Channel had quaint little shows, like a family trying to balance having 5 kids, or a wannabe star moving to New York and winding up becoming a nanny for an insanely rich family in a penthouse apartment.
It feels like a party every day. Hey, just say, Petro!
While on the contrast, Disney XD featured radical children's programming, like 2 bros shredding on skateboards, a kid finding out that his billionaire stepdad has 3 bionic superhumans in his basement, and a boy who lives with his best friend who's also a puppet. Okay, that's new. Also, if I had a nickel for every Disney XD star that wound up going to prison, well, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. And what's even weirder is the bizarre ways they tried to cover the lack of that actor in future episodes, but you'll see that when we get there. The channel at this point is pretty much on life support, only airing in about 4 countries currently. We're late into its run, they literally just started paying Let's Players to snip up their content and put it on TV. Oh boy, I love watching watered down YouTube videos. This sure beats watching YouTube. You know, except for my channel, of course. Subscribe! But despite how they went out, it still managed to have an impressive list of original series, and its short 13-year lifespan, so there must have been some appeal. The 2010s was like the 90s too, except with a lot more use of the word epic. And so I have to imagine this marketing strategy worked on some child out there. I recall this tactic not working on me very well as a kid. Maybe it's because I grew up in Ireland where we didn't really have the same trends as America, so skateboarding and rock bands just weren't all that appealing to us. I mainly remember watching Disney XD for reruns of Phineas and Ferb more than anything, but in between that show, I sat through a whole lot of other series on this network. Basically everything between the years of 2009 and 2014 I had seen, both live action and their many animated shows. And so I think it'd be interesting to go back and look through some of these to see if there's any diamonds in the rough, or if there's a reason nobody ever really tuned into this channel. Just like how you're tuning into this channel right now. And if you're new here and wondering what the LS stands for, did you know that as of recently, it now means Lord? And then there's like an S in there somewhere too. Just what am I talking about? Well, it sure is a good thing this video is sponsored by Established Titles. What's Established Titles? Well, I'm glad you asked, voice in my head. Have you ever wanted to call yourself a lord or a lady, which just automatically demands respect from all your peasant peers? Well, thankfully Established Titles offers just that, along with a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland. The title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land, with a unique plot number in Scotland. You even receive an official certificate with a crest, and for every order made, they even plant a tree to support global reforestation efforts. So, if you want to be able to officially call yourself Lord or Lady on your credit card or plane ticket or whatever, just want to find a great last-minute gift, or want to help out a good cause, check out establishedtitles.com/lsmark. The first 200 purchases get a plot of land just a few minutes of walking distance from mine. So again, check out establishedtitles.com/lsmark, and be in time for their massive Black Friday sale with an additional 10% off. And thanks to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. When I think about Disney XD, my mind immediately jumps to Zeke and Luther. Well, also I'm in the band, but I find this to be an infinitely more fascinating show. Although mostly for events that transpired in the real world. You'll see. But Zeke and Luther is the epitome of what demographic Disney XD was aiming for, starring 2 bros who just want to become world-famous professional skateboarders, living it up in California and hanging around a place called The Ramps, with their many cocky friends and rivals, such as Cookie from Ned's Declassified. Damn, he sure had a glow up. Wait, this is what he looks like now? Good for you, Cookie. First thing you'll notice here is how cheap the whole thing looks. Since the whole theme of the show revolves around an outside activity, it means it would be sort of pointless to spend a bunch of money on expensive indoor sets and stuff. And so most of the time, we only ever really see the 2 main characters standing around in their room, or being outside skating, with just about every episode focusing on the sport. Wait, is skating a sport? whatever. Adam Hicks, who plays Luther, also really likes to rap a lot.
In the mansion, I'm dancing, we dancing. In the mansion, we dancing.
Not even 4 episodes in though, they already start running out of ideas, with both the first and fourth basically retreading the same concept, of them trying to get a sponsor by promising to do a big death-defying stunt. Well, as death-defying as the budget will allow, one of them is literally just going in a tunnel. At first I thought that just the pilot would look this cheap, until I realized that in fact this isn't even the first one they produced. For some strange reason, the series aired out of order, and in fact the 4th episode is called the pilot. This low level of quality is kept up through around 73 episodes, until the series was cancelled. I mean, just look at the big epic to be continued sign they have during the 2-parter finale. I could literally make that in 5 seconds in Adobe Premiere. And by I mean my editor. Do that right now. Thanks. The funniest thing to me is when they'd show a character playing a video game, and they'd be using a literal GameCube controller. Like, by the time this aired, the Wii U was out. Clearly there were no gamers on staff. What's even worse than this is the series' humor, if you could even call it that. I don't need every show out there to be a laugh-out-loud, wacky comedic romp or anything, but with how fast the pacing is and how many silly sound effects they throw at you constantly, it was shocking to see that they rarely ever tell any jokes. The characters will more often than not say something kinda dumb, and you're expected to start bawling with laughter. And when they are clearly trying to have big gags, it's shit that you've seen in every single sitcom under the sun. Whoa, the character doesn't realize the hotel employee wants a tip and instead gives him something random? This is next level stuff. Wait a second, you're telling me that the main character is taking a bath and winds up getting his toe stuck in the faucet? It's not like that highly original gag has been done endless times in the past, featured in many memorable shows including The 7-Year Itch, Skies, The Dick Van Dyke Show, Love American Style, and iCarly. Overall, I was surprised to see that basically everything I had remembered about this show was the exact same. It's just a very basic and not very interesting show about 2 idiots trying to become skateboarders and consistently failing. I watched a bunch of this series, but I don't ever think I really liked it. Like I said earlier, it was more so just one of those intermediary shows that I begrudgingly sat through in order to get to the stuff I actually wanted to watch. And again, what I remember most about Zeke and Luther isn't even because of anything within the actual show. It was instead because of what happened 6 years after they stopped producing new episodes. The Disney money from his roles as Luther, and even one of the main characters in 2011's Lemonade Mouth, must have been running dry, because in 2018, Adam Hicks and his girlfriend were arrested for cruising around Burbank and robbing people at gunpoint, which you feel that. Don't believe me? Well, luckily there's video proof of one of these attempts, where he walks up to a guy crossing his arms, casually shows the gun to him, then fucking turns around to say hi to a random neighbor, the guy fucking books it, and Adam just simply says, "Alright, whatever, I guess we'll get him next time, on to the next one." Funnily enough, around the time I wanted to start working on this video, I decided to look the case up, only to see that weeks before he had been released from prison, and is even making YouTube videos now, with such classics as, "Where is Adam Hicks now in 2022? Former Lemonade Mouth star in his arrest, jail, and mental health. Adam Hicks answering questions on the justice system and jail. Part 1. He's also producing new songs about being in jail, and recreating the famous raps from his glory days."
I ain't worried about police, boy, I'm from the east. If you got a problem, then we take it to the streets.
In all seriousness, I don't think anyone should go to his channel and give him hate for this. It was years ago, and from the interviews I've seen, it appears he's genuinely remorseful for what he's done in the past. I would say he's moved on, but given his new song release, it's evident that he's still got a lot of creative expression to let out from his time in prison.
I've done everything I can for you, unless you continue to pay me.
Although I wonder how this would have affected Zeke and Luther if the arrest happened when the show was still airing. Well, funnily enough, Disney XD had another series that aired around the same time, which faced that exact issue. Let's see how they worked around that nightmare. Releasing in 2010, pair of King stars Brady and Boomer. They're twins?
Personally, I think we look identical.
After leading some not-so-thrilling lives in Chicago, the two of them are called to become the new kings of a tropical island, as their parents were before. The main thought I had here is that this idea sounds expensive. Not only do you have to make an outdoor tropical island set, but we also have to see the characters, you know, explore said island. In contrast to other sitcoms, where you could simply just have your episodes take place in rooms of a house. But I was shocked to see that they actually have a pretty diverse batch of sets here that give the thing some scope. awful effects aside. They have a bunch of rooms for the castle set up, the jungle, some enemy tribes, and tombs. There's a good amount of variety here that shows there's at least some effort being put into it. Whether it be with bringing up pirates, mummies, mermaids, I was impressed that for a show on a lower tier network, I could see the higher budget given in contrast to Zeke and Luther. I mean, just look at their to be continued sign. There's a drop shadow and everything. It still falls under the same sitcom-y tropes, however. Two idiot dude bros, the hot girl they have no chance with. They have a little cousin who's pissed off that he's not the king, and so he follows the bidding of this evil fish he has to try and kill his cousins. Reminded me of Kyle from Fanboy and Chum Chum, or the wizard guy from Planet Sheen. Don't ask why I watched either of those shows, okay? I was it. I will say though, this isn't a bad thing. At the very least, Doc Shaw and Mitchell Musso have much more energy and way better chemistry in contrast to the last show we looked at. There are actually some moments here where I'm caught off guard and could almost call it funny.
But it's not shiny.
They also try to up the stakes and progress the story along, which is interesting to me. There's this dark side of the island where all the supernatural shit lays, and I seriously have to wonder if there were any hardcore Pair of Kings fans out there who were like, holy shit, the evil fish is gonna become a human? This shit's raw! They even go back to Chicago every once in a while, where it's funny to see that nobody ever really notices they were suddenly gone. It's surprising for me to say, but this show actually didn't make me want to blow my brains out, especially given the terrible theme song. They're on top of the world, did you pick that up yet? Although if you realized something I said, it's that one of the kings, Brady, is played by Mitchell Musso, who I assume is mainly known for his role in Hannah Montana. And if you know anything about him, it's that he also got arrested. Yep, in 2011, Musso was pulled over and arrested for not only driving while drunk, but also for not even being the legal drinking age at the time. Okay, so not only was he also arrested like Adam, but it too happened in Burbank, the same fucking city. Lucky for him, he got off with a fine, but I can imagine this wasn't the sort of image Disney were looking to portray with their family-friendly silly Jungle show. And so with the premiere of the third season, he was replaced with Adam Hicks. Oh, for fuck's sake! This is a cursed role. So in the first episode of that season, we see the back of Brady's head. Yep, that's definitely him and not some stunt double they got so they could shoehorn in this change. Where he overhears the girl on the island, who throughout the entire series has done almost nothing but reject him for 2 seasons, say how she doesn't want to be with him for being immature, which, you know, again, he already knew. And in response to this, he goes back home, leaving a letter to his brother. Where coincidentally, around that same time, a ship washes up on the island where it's revealed that Brady was never meant to be king. Instead, the second king was supposed to be this new guy called Boz, who is in fact the third brother to the twins, who are actually triplets. Great, that was naturally done. I'd almost think it was intentionally this dumb, but I don't know if I'd give them that much credit. From here on, Adam just sort of fills the role of Mitchell's character. There's a couple different quirks, but for the most part, they're the same. Just the dumb guy to bounce off the other dumb guy. Okay, so what do Pair of Kings stans think of this change? As a kid, when I saw this episode when it came out, change very much so upset me at the time, and so I didn't like how distastefully they wrote out the iconic character of Brady from the show, and I refused to watch it from here on out, so I'm curious to know if there were any others in a similar camp to me. After this season, the show was cancelled, and in 2020, Musso has returned to the spotlight by making music. Okay, is this real? There's no way both of these actors starred in a Disney XD show, got arrested in Burbank, California, and then in 2022, both came back with music careers with songs that reflect how they were arrested. It's too coincidental. I gotta do a crossover album at some point. I'm all for it.
Sometimes I drink, yeah, sometimes I think.
Anyways, Pair of Kings was shockingly decent. I even have vague memories of my sisters and I laughing at a couple moments in this, so I can't say this was a complete slog to revisit. Uncanny coincidences aside. Something worth mentioning, however, is that Disney XD wasn't just all live-action sitcoms. They had their fair share of cartoons as well. So how about we take a quick detour to check some of them out, before going back to this thing. Disney XD was not short on animated programs, many of which were made by other studios, with Disney buying the rights to air it, such as Jimmy Two Shoes, which I really enjoyed when I was younger, although a huge part of that might just be because of the art style, which I love. And how interesting it is to me that the show was originally supposed to be for adults, and featured Jimmy getting hit by a car in the first episode and accidentally being sent to hell, which is very clearly still the premise of the kids' version, just with the town being under a different name. I cannot say the same for Randy Cunningham 9th Grade Ninja. Disney XD eventually started to make their own original series like Kick Buttowski, which I was originally going to include in this look-through, until I noticed that it's seen quite the resurgence in popularity as of recent, so calling it forgotten wouldn't exactly be accurate. which is fully deserved. I used to watch that show all the time and think it's great, especially the art style. I don't know what it is about these rigged cartoons with sharp, thick line art, but it just does something to me. Randy Cunningham, though? Well, from my point of view, this thing came and went with no fanfare. When it first came out, I was not interested in the slightest. I had started watching YouTubers discuss cartoons, and so it quickly became drilled into my head that rigged animation was the devil. And upon catching it on TV once and hearing the, honestly, pretty god-awful intro theme, I was comfortable in changing the channel anytime it came on. I also think at the time for me, ninjas were becoming less and less cool. So all of this came together to create a show that, on the art side, was the exact opposite of what I was looking to watch. After finally sitting down and watching some of it though, yeah, it's actually not that bad. Randy Cunningham 9th Grade Ninja is a mouthful, I know, just look at how the fans abbreviate it. Stars Randy, as he and his friend are entering high school, where every 4 years a new kid is given the responsibility of becoming the school ninja, having to help out the kids from the evil creatures created by not only the evil sorcerer who's trapped under the school, his character trait is that he's voiced by Tim Curry, but also this gazillionaire called McFist, who has an agreement with the sorcerer to use his creations to take out the ninja in exchange for power. Randy also can't tell anyone that he's the ninja, but breaks that promise by the end of episode 1. Great, it's not like there's any storytelling potential with that plot point. From the get-go, I was shocked to see how I never drew the obvious comparisons between this show's art style and Invader Zim. I mean, they're almost identical, so you wouldn't be shocked to see that the creator of that show, Jonan Vasquez, actually did the character designs for Randy Cunningham. This style worked perfectly with the rigged animation and a focus on action. During the regular talking scenes, the characters can look a tad lifeless with how they just stand around moving their rusty joints here and there. But during fight scenes, it really shines. I'm a big fan. The motion blur really adds to it at times, and the added lighting given to scenes and creative camera angles very much so allows it to have a pretty distinct visual style when compared to what else was airing alongside it. Every episode is 11 minutes, so with such little time, a majority of them follow a similar Monster of the Week structure. Randy is facing some high school predicament, most of which revolve around the same classic themes we've seen time and time again, like being popular, and being popular. Then the sorcerer, or McFist, release some kind of monster on the school to wreak havoc. Randy goes and asks his super epic ninja book for help, gets his advice, and saves the day. None of this is meant to be a negative, and as time goes on they do try to expand beyond this, with Season 2 eventually introducing another sorcerer that they have to take down, that's possessed one of the kids in school. But the show keeps up this breakneck pace where nothing is really allowed to breathe or linger. They're always rushing towards the next part of the formula, almost like it's become routine for the characters at a certain point. This is a rare case where I actually think a longer 22-minute runtime would have benefited the show greatly, and would allow us to see more of these characters aside from their usual pretty two-dimensional quirks. Again, Randy wants to be popular, his friend is fat and dumb, and at least from what I've watched, it never really does anything more with that. If you enjoy this show and think I would enjoy any specific episodes that fix that issue, let me know and I'll be sure to check it out. One thing that definitely distracted me was how Randy is voiced by Ben Schwartz, who's doing the exact same voice he gives Sonic in the movies, which in fact is just his regular voice. Although half the time when he's making his little quips it almost sounds like he's doing a fucking Seinfeld impression.
Who the honk is that?
I was surprised by Randy Cunningham though. Despite me not thinking it was the best thing in the world, there was a lot to appreciate here. From the great art style to the solid action, I probably would have enjoyed this back when it first came out if I gave it the chance. I can see why it amassed this small cult fanbase. The same cannot be said for Pickle and Peanut. Pickle and Peanut fucking sucks, dude.
Pickle and Peanut. Pickle and Peanut.
Pick, 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 pick.
Yes, that is the intro. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who ironically like this show and how it's just pure nonsense 24/7, but for me personally, nope. Pickle and Peanut stars Pickle and Peanut, working their dead-end job and getting into random supernatural hijinks, whether it be going to old lady jail, having a bunch of living creatures they find from a cereal box start to multiply, or conjuring up ghosts, finding haunted couches. Anything goes in this not-so-regular show. Oh yeah, that's right! This is just worse regular show. Who could have come up with such a wholly original idea? If I were to give it any credit at all, I actually don't mind the art style. Having the two main characters be literal PNGs of a pickle and a peanut may come off lazy, but it's clearly the kind of style they're going for. I love the backgrounds and the way the humans look, and with how much they incorporate other kinds of mixed media, whether it be clay or puppets or just straight up humans, it has a very unique art style, especially for Disney XD. Dude, they must have thought this would be the biggest thing ever with how cool and edgy it is. This ain't your granddaddy's, Disney! On Peanut, it's off the walls from the get-go. Let's take the first episode for example. The characters start by just spouting radical hip phrases and rapping.
Chemo corn special. Kitty litter, 2 for $1.
They then get knocked into some Zit cream, which ends up putting one right on Pickle's ass. Also, it's alive and it can talk, and they name it Greg. Everyone starts to like them because of this, until Greg gets turned into a giant ferocious monster by being shot with Zit cream and cereal, to which they now have to kill him. Also, they introduce a character to help them near the end, and I think it's meant to be funny that he comes out of nowhere, but because he's introduced to the same way as literally every single other character, and there's no shift in tone, I'm not even sure if that was the intention.
Chicken horse!
Honestly, the tone here reminds me of the new Odd Ones Out show more than anything, a series where anything goes and you're just along for the ride. And I can see why people would like this style. I mean, clearly it's got its fans, just listen to these reviews. 10 out of 10. Funnier than Pickle Rick? This is great for the boys. Get the whole squad around to watch this masterpiece. This was the first cartoon my father truly loved. In fact, every time he watches any episode, he laughs so hard that he froths at the mouth and passes out from lack of oxygen intake. My brother loves this show so much that he goes through a magical transformation turning into Pickle Man. In that state, he loses his mind and screams Pickle Man while beating up my children. Good boxing practice. And I chuckled at least once, so the show is a masterpiece. Changed my mind. I'm glad you liked it. But to me, it comes off like the most try-hard thing imaginable. It's not earned randomness, it's trying too hard. And if anything, it feels calculated instead of off the cuff. Like they're desperately trying to make something that they think will catch people off guard. But because the show is running at a mile a minute, you can't even process what's happening at a certain point. It's just constant noise. So when every second of the thing is cranked up to 10 at all times, it results in a show that it's just kind of embarrassing to watch. I mean, I'd rather watch a sitcom about a kid who builds a puppet that ends up coming to life to become his best friend who wields an awesome sword and dances and raps and is just a freaking sweet guy all around. Wait a minute. Crash and Bernstein is the most bizarre idea for a children's sitcom. It released in 2012 and only ran for less than 40 episodes. I am not surprised in the slightest that nobody seemed to care about this one. But upon watching it, I was shocked to see that it seriously might be my favorite out of any of these. I mean, ironically, but still, credit where credit's due. I was not expecting this from the same showrunner as Bizaardvark starring Jake Paul. It features a boy named Wyatt, who's sick of only having 3 sisters. He wants someone he can do cool boy stuff with. And so on his 12th birthday, he's taken to a Build-A-Bear knockoff, where he creates this ultra-epic best friend who he calls Crash, who has ninja swords and an attitude. Then he comes to life. Yeah, they don't even really try to explain this.
Isn't he epic?
99% of what makes this show so funny to me is Crash himself. He is the most based character in all of fiction. He goes to school and kicks the shit out of the big bully, enlisting fear throughout the other students. He has no respect for Wyatt's mother and starts demolishing her house without even thinking about it. Dude even fucking goes to space at one point. He is epic.
Look what I found in the shower this morning.
Whatever. Look what I found in your purse this morning.
He is a fucking force to be reckoned with. He can do or say whatever the hell he wants and nobody is able to stop him. You can tell from the second the intro starts that this guy is fucking epic. Although, I don't know why there's some unspoken rule that every Disney XD show needs to start with a rap number.
Yo, I'm gonna let you finish, but ding dong!
Who's that?
Yo, it's Crash at the door. Don't wait for you to open, kick it down hardcore!
Crash is played by award-winning puppeteer Tim Legasse, who worked on Sesame Street and the Muppets, which explains why he looks like a purple recolor of Walter from the 2011 Muppets movie. But he sells the delusion perfectly. I love that everybody is scared by his very presence half the time, probably aware of the fact that at any moment Crash could snap and murder them all in cold blood with no sense of remorse. I want to see the gods battle it out and have Crash versus Uncle Grandpa. Where's that death battle screw attack? This show is so fucking unfunny and lame with how hard it tries to be rad and awesome that it somehow turns around and inadvertently becomes rad and awesome. It's so confusing, there's no way to describe it. The show is on Disney+. Please go watch it to see what I mean. It's just the right amount of unhinged. I was surprised when doing research to see that there actually is a pretty sizable amount of folks who remember this show. At the very least, there was much more fan art than I was anticipating. So I'm wondering if there's anyone else out there who's seen it and since forgotten about its majesty. How Zeke and Luther got almost double the amount of episodes is baffling. Although, I do have some bad news for all you Crash and Bernstein enjoyers out there. Did you know that back in 2014, a pilot for a spin-off to Crash and Bernstein was greenlit by Disney called Commando Crash? which would see the titular Crash be sent off to military school. I can only assume to make everyone his bitch. Apparently the full pilot was shot and put together. There's even tweets from cast members who acknowledged that it was indeed filmed. But I guess for whatever reason, Disney decided not to go with it. Presumably they were too frightened to yet again unleash such a powerful being onto this earth. But that pilot still has to exist out there somewhere. So if there's one takeaway from this video, it's that I'm calling upon all of you to set out and search for this important piece of lost media. I refuse to eat, sleep, or drink until it's found. And with that, I think this is a pretty good place to end our look through of some of the long-forgotten Disney XD shows. There's some more that I've yet to talk about, like Lab Rats or Mighty Med, both of which eventually combined into one single show called Lab Rats Elite Force. So maybe I can cover them another time if I want to revisit this topic. I also just skipped some that I felt weren't worth talking about, like the hit series Kickin' It, starring Hannah Montana's brother being in a karate dojo, or I'm in the Band, which... Okay, well I remember liking that one, but I just didn't feel like including it. But it's been a fun journey. I never gave any of these shows a second thought after I stopped watching Disney XD by around 2013, so it was interesting getting to see if any of them stood the test of time. The answer was not really, but hey, it was fun nonetheless. Disney XD may have been a failed experiment, with I think its biggest issue being how many of these shows were clearly just trying to appeal to dated trends of the era. But I think it's clear that despite that, it still holds a special place in many kids' childhoods. Now all we have to do is sit here and wait for the day that the news informs us that Crash has been arrested in Burbank for possession of drugs.